In every corner of Africa, stories breathe, tales buried in dust, whispered through firelight. You're about to hear one of them. Welcome to African Horror Stories. The sun, a molten disk of golden fire, began its slow descent over the endless green tapestry of the Zimbabwean plateau. Its last rays kissed the ancient stones of Great Zimbabwe, igniting the massive dry stone walls in a blaze of amber and crimson. From his vantage point atop the hill complex, Chief Mwenemutapa Empire XI stood, a solitary, imposing figure against the vast canvas of the sky. His regalia, woven from the finest cotton and adorned with intricate beadwork, shifted slightly in the evening breeze, mirroring the rustle of the leaves below. His staff, topped with a polished orb of black ebony, tapped a rhythmic beat on the weathered granite. His gaze swept over the sprawling city that had been the heart of his people for centuries. Below him, the great enclosure, a colossal testament to human ingenuity, coiled like a slumbering serpent around the sacred valley. Its towering, mortarless walls, some reaching over 30 feet high, seemed to defy gravity, a silent hymn sung in stone. The distinctive chevron pattern, a zigzag motif of light and shadow, ran along its upper reaches, a timeless symbol of fertility and prosperity. In the very heart of the great enclosure, the enigmatic conical tower stood sentinel, a perfect, unblemished cone reaching for the heavens. Smoke curled lazily from the thatched roofs of the circular daga huts nestled within the walls, hinting at the evening meals being prepared, the laughter of children, and the murmur of life that had always thrived beneath the city's ancient gaze. But Makoni XI's eyes were not truly fixed on the physical city, vibrant as it was. His attention was drawn to the 8 magnificent soapstone birds that stood on pedestals around him, their forms stylized yet powerful, their beaks perpetually pointed towards the eastern horizon. These were the Hungwe, the sacred fish eagles, the most profound mystery and the greatest power of Great Zimbabwe. They were more than mere carvings. They were believed to be the intermediaries, the conduits between the mortal realm and Mwari, the high god. Each bird was a silent watcher, a guardian of the royal lineage, a keeper of the city's deepest secrets. He carried one of these Hungwe with him now, a smaller, intricately carved replica on a staff, its form mirroring the larger statues. It was said that these birds embodied the spirit of the ancestors, especially those powerful kings who had come before him, who had built this stone marvel and guided its destiny. As the first star pricked through the twilight canvas, Makoni XI felt a profound sense of weight settle upon his shoulders. The air, thick with the scent of wood smoke and distant rain, seemed to whisper tales of old, stories of kings who communed with the birds, of secrets hidden within the very stones. For generations, the Mwenemutapa line had drawn its strength and wisdom from the Hungwe. They were not simply symbols, they were active participants in the fate of the kingdom. Through rituals performed at the base of the conical tower and solemn meditations within the sacred chambers of the hill complex, the kings sought guidance from Mwari through the silent, watchful eyes of the soapstone birds. It was said that when a king faced a grave decision, or when the land cried out for rain, the Hungwe would stir, their silence broken by a faint, ethereal hum that resonated deep within the earth. Lately, however, the hum had been absent. A disquieting silence had settled upon the birds, a silence that mirrored the growing unease in Makoni XI's heart.
The rains had been sporadic, the harvests lean, and the trade routes that once brought gold and ivory from far-off lands seemed to be dwindling. Whispers of dissent, like the dry leaves scuttling across the sun-baked ground, had begun to reach his ears, murmurs about changing times, about new powers rising in the south, about the need for a king to demonstrate the ancient power that had built this wondrous city. Makoni XI knew the legends by heart. He knew of Mutota, the legendary founder who had journeyed north from this very plateau to establish the Mutapa Empire. He knew of the spirit guardians, the Mahondro, who were said to still roam the secret groves surrounding Great Zimbabwe, protecting its secrets. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that the fate of his kingdom, perhaps even the fate of his entire people, lay intertwined with the silent wisdom of the Hungwe. He stretched out his hands, palms open to the rising moon, its light now painting the sky a soft, ghostly silver. He felt a deep, almost primal yearning for the hum, for the ancient connection to return, to feel the spirits of his ancestors guide him once more. He turned from the edge of the precipice, his eyes falling once more on the 8 birds, each one unique, a testament to the master carvers who brought them to life. Some were sleek and aerodynamic, others more robust, their feathers intricately etched into the stone, but all shared that piercing, observant gaze, forever fixed on a point beyond the horizon. It was then, as the last vestiges of daylight bled into the deep purples of night, that Makoni XI felt it. Not the hum, not yet, but a faint tremor in the air, a subtle shift in the energy that permeated the hill complex. It was as if the stones themselves were stirring, awakening from a long slumber. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that the time had come to seek the deeper mysteries, to unlock the true power of the Hungwe. The next morning, before the sun had fully cleared the horizon, casting long, ethereal shadows across the valley, Makoni XI began his preparations. He fasted, purified himself in the waters of the sacred stream that flowed beneath the hill complex, and adorned himself in simple, unembellished white linen. This was not a day for kingly display, but for humble supplication. He gathered his senior advisors, the Nangas, spiritual healers, and the Dare, council of elders, in the inner chamber of the hill complex, a circular room carved into the very rock, its walls smooth and cool to the touch. The only light came from a small opening in the ceiling, allowing a single shaft of sunlight to pierce the gloom, illuminating the central altar. On the altar, he placed the small replica of the Hungwe from his staff, positioning it precisely. Around it, the Nangas arranged various sacred items, a calabash filled with water from the holy stream, dried herbs whose scent promised visions, and smooth, river-worn divination bones. The air grew heavy with incense, a sweet, earthy perfume that transported Makoni XI back to the teachings of his own youth, to the countless stories of courage, wisdom, and the unbreakable bond between his people and the land. "My elders, my trusted advisors," Makoni XI's voice, though soft, resonated with the weight of his office. "The seasons are changing, the land is restless, and the hearts of our people yearn for the prosperity that Mwari once showered us upon. The Hungwe, our sacred messengers, have been silent for too long. I believe it is time to seek their deeper counsel." A ripple of murmurs went through the small assembly. To seek the deeper counsel was to embark on a perilous spiritual journey, to confront not just the ancient wisdom, but potentially the ancient tests that came with it. It was a path few kings had dared to walk in generations. "My king," began Elder Chigwedre, his face a roadmap of wisdom and wrinkles. The path to the heart of the Hungwe is not for the faint of spirit. The legends speak of trials, of visions that challenge the very fabric of one's being. Are you prepared to face the spirits of the first kings, to confront the Mahundro themselves? I am, Makoni XI replied without hesitation, his gaze steady. The fate of Great Zimbabwe demands it. I will not see our legacy wither. I will not be the king who allowed the song of our people to fade. The Nangas began their chants, low and rhythmic, their voices weaving a tapestry of ancient sounds that seemed to vibrate through the very stones of the chamber. Makoni XI closed his eyes, focusing on the small soapstone bird on the altar. He imagined its form, its watchful eyes, its silent strength. He emptied his mind, allowing the sounds and scents to wash over him, preparing his spirit for the journey ahead. He remembered the tales of the first king who, guided by a vision of a soaring Hungwe, had first chosen this very spot for the city.
He envisioned the master builders, their hands calloused and strong, meticulously placing each stone, not with mortar, but with an understanding of geometry and balance that seemed almost mystical. He saw the bustling markets, the vibrant ceremonies, the endless caravans of traders laden with precious goods, all thriving under the watchful eyes of the Hungwe from their perches on the hill complex. As the chants intensified, Makoni XIX felt a strange sensation, as if his essence was detaching from his physical form. The light from the ceiling seemed to swirl, the air grew thick with energy, and the chamber walls shimmered. He was no longer in the physical world, but in a space between spaces, a realm where time flowed differently, where the past and present intertwined. He found himself standing at the foot of the conical tower, but it was not the tower he knew. This one pulsed with an inner light, emanating a soft, golden glow. Its surface was not rough stone, but smooth, polished, almost alive. And around him, suspended in the air, were not 8, but countless Hungwe, their soapstone forms now translucent, shimmering with an ethereal light. Each bird began to hum, a deep, resonant vibration that filled his entire being, a sound that was both ancient and new, a melody that spoke of power, memory, and profound connection. This was the hum he had longed for. One of the birds, larger and more radiant than the others, detached itself from the swirling flock and descended before him. Its eyes, once mere carved depressions, now glowed with an intelligent, piercing light. It was the spirit of the first king embodied within the Hungwe. Mwenemutapa, the voice echoed, not from the bird's beak, but from deep within Makoni XIX's own mind. You seek the heart of Great Zimbabwe. You seek the ancient power, but power is not given, it is earned through understanding and remembrance. I am ready to understand, Makoni XIX replied, his voice surprisingly steady in this dreamlike state. Then remember, the Hungwe commanded, and with a flash of light, Makoni XIX found himself not in the dreamscape, but truly transported to another time. He stood on a wind-swept plateau, the very spot where Great Zimbabwe would one day rise, but now it was an untouched wilderness. He saw the first king, a young, determined man named Nyatsimba Mutota, standing on the hill complex with his diviners. Mutota wore a simple animal skin, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon.
"Here," one of the diviners proclaimed, pointing to a soaring fish-eagle circling high above. "Here the Great Spirit wishes for a city of stone, a place where the Mwari will speak to us through the Hungwe, a place that will stand eternal." Makoni XIX watched as Mutota, inspired by the vision of the Hungwe, began to organize his people. He saw the laborious process of quarrying granite from the surrounding hills, the meticulous shaping of each stone by hand, the careful transport to the building site. He felt the sweat on his brow, the ache in his muscles, the pride in creating something magnificent. He witnessed the architectural genius firsthand, the way the double walls of the great enclosure were designed to create a complex system of passages and ritual spaces, the ingenious engineering of the conical tower built without mortar, its stability a marvel of pure balance and interlocking stones. He understood now that the chevron pattern was not just decorative, but symbolized the prosperity of a fertile land and the bounty that Mwari provided. He saw the first of the soapstone birds being carved, not merely as an artistic endeavor, but as a sacred act, each feather, each curve imbued with prayer and purpose. He understood the profound spiritual significance of these birds. They were not idols to be worshipped, but vessels, sacred instruments that channeled the wisdom of the ancestors and the will of Mwari. Years turned into decades within this vision. He saw the city grow, stone by stone, wall by wall. He witnessed the first ceremonies in the great enclosure, the vibrant dances, the joyful feasts. He saw the kings who followed Mutota, each one seeking counsel from the Hungwe, each one adding to the city's grandeur and power. The city thrived, becoming a hub of trade, culture, and spiritual enlightenment. Gold flowed in, ivory was traded, and the reputation of Great Zimbabwe spread across the continent. But then the vision shifted. The bustling energy began to wane, the laughter grew fainter, the meticulously maintained walls showed signs of neglect. He saw kings who became too focused on earthly power, who forgot the spiritual core of the city, who neglected the rituals that connected them to Mwari through the Hungwe. The soapstone birds, once vibrant with an ethereal glow, began to dim. Their hum, once a constant presence, became sporadic, then faded. The very stones of Great Zimbabwe, which had once sung with pride of creation, began to whisper of forgotten promises. Makoni XIX felt a pang of profound sadness, a deep empathy for the kings who had lost their way. He understood now that Great Zimbabwe was more than just a collection of impressive buildings. It was a living entity, its spirit intertwined with the spiritual purity and devotion of its rulers. The decline wasn't just economic or political, it was spiritual. The spirit of the first king, still embodied in the luminous Hungwe, reappeared before him. "The stones remember," it said, its voice now tinged with a solemn warning. "They remember the devotion, the vision, the connection, but they also remember the forgetting, the neglect. The power of Great Zimbabwe lies not in its physical might, but in its spiritual heart, nurtured by the wisdom of Mwari, channeled through the Hungwe." Makoni XIX was gently drawn back from the vision, slowly returning to the inner chamber of the hill complex. The scent of incense still lingered, and the nangas continued their low chants, but now they seemed to hum in harmony with a newfound resonance within his own spirit. The single shaft of sunlight from the ceiling had shifted, now illuminating his face, which was streaked with tears, not of sorrow, but of profound understanding and renewed purpose. He opened his eyes, feeling invigorated, reborn.
The weight on his shoulders had not lessened, but it had transformed. It was no longer a burden of despair, but a mantle of responsibility he was now truly ready to bear. He looked at the small soapstone bird on the altar, and in his mind he heard a faint ethereal hum emanating from it. The silence of the Hungwe was broken. "The spirits have spoken," Makoni XIX announced, his voice clear and strong, filled with an authority that had been absent before. "I have walked with our ancestors. I have witnessed the birth and flourishing of Great Zimbabwe. I have seen where we faltered." He turned to his council, his eyes alight with a new vision. The power of Great Zimbabwe is not in conquest, but in connection. It is in our devotion to Mwari, in our respect for the land, and in our unwavering commitment to the wisdom of the Hungwe. He explained his journey, sharing the visions of Mutota and the subsequent kings, highlighting the spiritual foundations of the city. He spoke of the Hungwe as true messengers, not mere symbols, and of the need to rekindle the ancient rituals, to reconnect with the spiritual heart of their kingdom. "We will restore the prosperity of Great Zimbabwe, not by force, but by faith. We will renew our vows to Mwari, we will honor our ancestors, and we will listen again to the whispers of stone and wings of the Hungwe." As he finished speaking, a magnificent fish-eagle, its wings spread wide, soared majestically from the vast sky above the hill complex. It circled once, twice above the conical tower, then let out a piercing cry that echoed through the valley. It was a cry of affirmation, a message from the heavens. The people below, who had gathered at the base of the hill complex, looked up in awe, their faces filled with hope and renewed faith. Makoni XIX looked at the 8 silent Hungwe, their eyes now seeming to sparkle with a faint internal light. He knew that the journey was far from over, the challenges remained, but he also knew that he had re-established the ancient connection. The great spirit of Zimbabwe had stirred, the whispers of stone and wing had been heard.
That's all for today. If you liked the video, let me know by hitting like. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more. You can watch another video of mine right here. See you next time.